What I wanted to do this morning was continue the discussion of the effects of the border adjustment tax. I talked about the border adjustment tax on Friday, and uh, issued a piece on it. Uh, I'm actually in the process of writing the quarterly institutional presentation, and 92 pages of the quarterly institutional presentation will be available by close of business next Friday. One of the themes in that I'm discovering is I think there's a lot more behind the current rally than just Trump. I think that what's actually happening is you've got very rapid growth of corporate credit, and that's in the US. And we see that in the market for corporate bonds, and that is in turn generated by the quite remarkable recovery in US corporate profits, both this year and what is forecast for next year. So I'll extend upon that theme over the couple of talks next week. The border adjustment tax, as we spoke about on Friday, what it really is a removal of the tax deduction on imports into the United States. And the net result of that is that if the corporate tax rate is 20%, the net result of that is the same as putting in place a 20% revenue tariff. And at the same time as that introduction of that higher price of imports, all expenditure concerning with exports is still tax deductible. And the view rather obviously is that should improve the US balance of trade because it increases the demand for imports while continuing the same support for exports. So the major controversy in the United States, and there are increasing number of press articles being written about this and television commentary about this, is what is the exchange rate effect of that improvement in the US trade balance. And some of the US commentary about this has become quite alarmist. There is variously estimated that if you improve the US trade balance by as much as it theoretically might, if you increase the price of imports by 20% relative to exports, then you could generate an up move in the US dollar of between 15 and 25%. And if you did generate an up move in the US dollar by between 15 and 25%, as you theoretically might, then that would generate considerable disruption in the world economy, and perhaps entirely eliminate, or the up move in the US dollar might entirely eliminate all of the potential benefits of the border adjustment tax to the US economy. Now, considering so many people believe this, and considering so many senior economists have taken the position that this is probably what's going to happen, it will be therefore of no surprise to you that I believe that this whole idea is a waste of printer's ink. And I've attempted to begin to approach what I think is going to be a lengthy discussion, which is going to go through the year about this, in a footnote in the piece, a simple footnote in the piece, where I talk about this issue of movements in the exchange rate. And what I note there is that right now, the euro area has a persistent trade surplus. The United States has a persistent trade deficit. Yet what we see is that the US dollar is strong and the euro is weak. Now, why is that the case? And the reason that's the case, that in practice, it is not the balance of trade that determines the level of exchange rate. It is capital flows which determine the level of exchange rate. In an example which I quoted on Switzer on Monday night, I said I had done some modelling of the impact of the US current account balance on the level of the US dollar euro, for example. And if I do that, I find, yes, it is true that the current account is statistically significant in explaining the US dollar euro, but it explains slightly less than 1% of all of the variation of the US dollar euro, the biggest currency in the world that the US dollar is traded against over the last 30 years. And the other 90%, 99% is explained by capital flows. So what I think what's shaping up here is, as a Nobel Prize winning economist once said in a presentation that I went to, economists don't care if the world works in practice as long as it works in theory. In this case, what we have is a very strong theoretical argument by many leading economists that this is what's going to happen. But I believe in practice, if you actually look at how foreign exchange market works, this is never going to happen. But I think this is going to be an extended discussion over many months. That's the end of my comment.